Hello everybody, and welcome to the final episode of Mario & Luigi Superstar Saga, beating it with only 1 HP. Now, if you haven't seen the other episodes, this is episode 4 in the series, and we'll be beating the game in this episode, so if you haven't seen the other 3, then I'd recommend going back and watching those. But either way, we're continuing on with beating Joke's End and Bowser's Castle are the only areas we have left. So the first big thing that we needed was to go and grab the Ultra Hammers in order to progress through the rest of the game. Now, Joke's End is going to have some interesting and unique challenges for this 1 HP run specifically. For example, there's a lot of sections within Joke's End that require the bros to split up. And in battles where they're together, I don't feel like the enemies in this area are that much of an issue. However, in these split sections that the bros have, I found that honestly the best strategy was just to avoid fights, and if I ended up getting into a fight, then to just run away. Because honestly, our power has been pretty good throughout this playthrough without needing to worry about things like HP and defense. It's actually in being able to focus on more like power and speed. I really don't feel that the extra levels of taking out all these enemies are really worth it. And I've already made plenty of really dumb errors on not running away from battles that I should have, which have resulted in me getting game overs. And at this point, I feel like I'm trying not to add any extra game overs to what I already need to. But the puzzle sections aren't that bad, really, because I think this little block thing is really the only extremely difficult part about Joke's End, in my opinion, just because this puzzle can be annoying to just get 30 points in 25 seconds, and also me pressing my speed up button was not helpful for this first attempt. But other than just some slightly tedious puzzles, we really didn't face many challenges in Joke's End because we just ran away from all the enemies. So honestly, that made everything so much easier. After making it to the top floor, we are going to specifically choose to battle against Cackletta. And so how this works is, there's a whole bunch of options. It doesn't really matter in the base game, they all have the same stats, but the only stats that I edited in buffing their HP and everything was specifically Cackletta, so that's why we are purposely choosing that option. I didn't buff Jojora's HP because in most cases I've really never seen her take enough damage for that to really be an issue, because Jojora has insane defense, and even though she doesn't have that much HP overall, because she runs away from the fight, you basically are only left dealing damage against the friend, whichever one you choose. In this case, Cackletta. So there's 2 phases that we have to worry about with Cackletta, because when she does this and puts on, I guess, her makeup, she does change weaknesses, because in one phase, you can hit her with fire and you can't hit her with thunder. And then when she changes to makeup, she will swap that. And then I believe in this phase, she also has more defense, which is something that we need to be aware of. But honestly, besides a little bit of annoying interference by Jojora coming back, this boss really didn't have that many issues. And with us getting the advanced knockout bros, I mean, we kind of ended up making it a piece of cake. So after Jojora runs away because we beat up her friend, we enter the intermission of getting the real Peach back and having Luigi quote-unquote infiltrate the repaired Bowser Cruiser in order to get the Beanstar back. Now, I'm not going to worry about grabbing all of the items by fixing the electric panels. They just give you some beans, but I'm honestly not too worried about that one. This area doesn't have any enemies or anything, it's just basically walking from room to room, gathering some items if you'd like, and then getting the Beanstar and then leaving. However, Mario does have a little bit of danger when he's in the desert, because you do have to fight some dry bones and some limbo bros, but I just used the same method that I did in Joke's End of ignoring battling them. But we do have to have our final showdown with Popple. And I've mentioned this in the other episodes, but when inputting like the buffed HP values that I gave to bosses to kind of try and balance out the fact that I do so much damage, because there's no point in putting my level up points into anything other than really offensive attributes. Popple's HP, for some reason, he's the only one in the game that has this issue, but it just becomes completely broken. And I'm not sure why it is that way, but that's just kind of how it went. But anyway, he has a massive HP pool. However, in this fight, we actually run into it's not really an issue, it's actually something that is quite helpful. In the first two fights, when you're going off against Popple and Rookie, there's a mechanic that whenever you attack Popple, Rookie will get mad, and then Rookie will get a free hit in. However, in this battle, we actually don't see that. When we damage Popple, Birdo doesn't really do anything, but once we defeat Popple, then Birdo would get angry. And then I think if you defeat Birdo first, then Popple will still just run away, as he does in both fights with Rookie. But I'm not 100% sure on that, because I always tend to go for Popple first. But in this fight, I decided, just for the fun of it, I was going to try and defeat Popple first. And even with his massive HP pool, I don't think that their attacks are really that dangerous in this battle. Or at least aren't as hard to dodge as some of the other ones. So I honestly didn't really struggle that much in this fight. And then eventually we take down Popple and we finish off Birdo, and the fight's done, and that's the last we'll see of Popple in this run. After returning from our run-in with Popple for the last time, we find out that Bean Castle is under attack from Bowser's Castle in the sky. So we have a whole conversation about it, and then basically go back to, I don't remember his name or her name, but they fly us to the castle, and now we're on to the final area of this game. Now, there are a few things that I think are important to mention while going through Bowser's Castle. First of all, we are going to be doing kind of the same strategy of avoiding a lot of fights, or when we do get in fights, just try to finish it quickly using Bros moves, but I'm not super worried about that. However, we do have to face off against all of the Koopalings, and they're one of the few bosses that I actually did not change their HP values. I feel like they're just, in vanilla game, extremely easy to beat, and then I didn't want to make it so unbalanced that I would have trouble with the timer bomb that appears later. And so I felt that the best course of action was to just leave their HP as normal. But because their HP is so low, I pretty much end up just shredding through all of them. As you'll see, there really isn't much of an issue fighting the Koopalings at all. They do gain some new moves as we go throughout the castle, but I think pretty much every battle ended in the first turn, and so I pretty much just never had to deal with them attacking at all, because they would basically get destroyed before they would even get a chance to attack. So ironically, this part of the game actually ended up just becoming extremely easy. Although the Koopalings didn't pose much of a challenge, Fawful, on the other hand, was a little more difficult. And it was really just because of the attack where you're supposed to hit those like little plasma balls. I failed miserably on hitting a significant number of them, and then had to rely on dodging them by jumping over them, which honestly did not end well. But after another go, I did much better on it, and we were finally able to get past that first phase at least. And I did buff Fawful's HP, unlike the Koopalings. Fawful, Bowletta, and Cackletta Soul will all have buffed HP. It was mainly just because of the timing that I did not buff the Koopalings. However, Fawful still went down extremely easy. So, I'm gonna be honest, I don't know if there was just an issue when I buffed his HP, but either way, it's now time to actually get into the final boss. And like I said, I did buff Bowletta's HP because I feel like it's a little bit of a disservice in the vanilla game where she has so little HP, and I know that, like, you know, she's technically not the final boss, and she's just like phase 1, of the final boss, but I did want to make this like a more legitimate battle. And so I either like doubled or tripled her HP to make this much more of a difficult fight. Taking a few extra hits, Cackletta goes down still pretty quickly. Unfortunately, our power is just kind of insane. But now we get to move on really to the real challenge that I've been kind of dreading a little bit since the beginning of this entire run. Now, even among the vanilla game, this boss is infamous for taking it up quite a few notches. And seeing as I only have 1 HP total, typically you start this battle on 1 HP, but I only have 1 HP total. There's a lot of moves that she can throw out that I'm going to have to dodge. Or at least keep one bro alive so we can get into a cycle of basically reviving. On the bright side, because of our enormous power and amount of BP, if we just use bros moves, then it puts us in a good position to just take out the hands. So after softwalking my game, because I don't know how in the world that happened, or what happened, I reset, and this time everything seemed to work properly, so I don't know exactly what happened, but now that we're in the clear, and the heart is now open, we can now start doing some actual damage. Now, I said before that I did buff her HP. I believe her base value was 1200. And so now it's up to an even either 2000 or I might have just doubled it to 2400. But we're actually able, just because of our huge amount of power, to do a lot of damage on the arms so that she can't get a bunch of attacks off and just do damage to the heart. However, this is where things start getting really scary, because the more damage that you do to the heart, she starts throwing out more and more moves. So for example, now she's throwing out the eye move. However, there's one move in particular that I'm very terrified of, and I'm sure we're going to run into it. Because the reason I'm terrified of it is because I can't dodge it for the life of me on a normal playthrough. So I don't like my odds very much on 1 HP. Luckily, we're able to do a bunch of damage, and she throws out the move, and I immediately die. That is why I don't like that move. So we run it back another time, and we're pretty much able to get her weak point exposed pretty quickly. On that last attempt, that Arn move is really hard, in my opinion, to dodge. And it's really the only attack that she can do that I'm very not confident in my ability to be able to dodge it continually. So that's kind of the scary part of where we're at, is can can I try to make it so that I can avoid having to deal with that attack? Because if I can avoid dealing with that attack, I feel like my odds are actually looking pretty good. But the problem with trying to avoid that attack specifically is that she can basically use her heart to build back her missing like body pieces and then immediately decide to use moves. So honestly, it had me quite a bit worried, but then I was able to pull this off. So, I was able to pull it off. I was able to just overload Cackletta's soul with damage before I had to face that move another time. And honestly, I feel like that's the only reason I won, is because I was able to avoid her pulling out that arm move. Because I don't know if I would have been able to dodge it, maybe after a bunch of attempts. But regardless, is it possible to beat Mario & Luigi Superstar Saga with only 1 HP? The answer is yes. Now, it took me quite a few tries. I'm gonna put the death count total right in here so you can see how many game overs I got total. But we were able to make it all the way through with only 1 HP on each of the bros. Now, if I did this again, I probably would try and shy away from maybe just boosting power on both the bros like crazy, because they kind of annihilated anything that was able to, like, anything that got close to them. But honestly, I had a fun time, and I'm really glad that I did this challenge. I think it was really fun to just experiment with different things on some of these old games that I really enjoy. And I'd love to do more challenges like this, as well as do some challenges on some other games. And it'll be a while before it comes out, but me and my bro, Mr. Blubbernuggets, are actually planning a specific challenge, a co-op challenge, regarding this game sometime in the future. So, not quite done with Superstar Saga just yet. But anyway, thank you everybody so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this challenge, and if you have any other ideas for challenges, let me know in the comments below. Other than that, I've been Some Mask Guy Plays, and I'll see you in the next one.